I want to make a difference to people's lives in a positive way. And I often think about that in terms of single people or a family. If there's something I can do to offer support and better their chances at managing the challenges of life, I'll do it.
Kia ora. I'm Priyanka Poulton, and my father, the late Professor Richie Poulton, was the director of the Dunedin Multidisciplinary Health and Development Research Unit, also known as the Dunedin Study, or simply the Study. His knowledge, experience and wisdom as a behavioural scientist helped me to navigate the challenges of adolescence and young adulthood. It is this wisdom and experience that is now helping other people too.
My primary purpose is to do insightful research about the human condition and then to translate or transfer those insights into initiatives that act upon people's lives to make them better. So anything short of that total package is only half the deal. Kia ora, I'm Richie Poulton, the director of the Dunedin Longitudinal Study. I've been involved in the project since 1985 when I first interviewed at age 13, or the age 13 assessment of the study members. I became Deputy Director in 1995 and took over from Phil Silver in the year 2000. So I've been in this role for the last 23, 24 years.
Dad was always asking me, what do you want to do when you grow up? From childhood to being a young adult, he was determined to start me thinking about living a purposeful life, and he imparted in me his innate quality of being curious.
I was always curious. I was wondering about stuff as a child, and I was quite thoughtful and asked annoying questions often of adults as to the whys and wherefores of life, and adults were a foreign country to me as a child. They did things that made me question their motives, my own friendships, garden variety stuff. Some that went wrong made me question my growing awareness of inequity and prejudice at secondary school made me question. I suppose I was a bit of a bore, really. I was very questioning and kept on wanting to know the answers. So it was inevitable, I suppose, I would end up studying human beings somehow. And I just got a plum job, as it turned out.
Besides his desire to make a positive difference, Dad also had a big love for sport. It wasn't uncommon for his secondary school teacher, former All Blacks coach Sir Graham Henry, to pop around and watch the footy.
Oh, Richie was a very good sportsman. Like, he was an outstanding cricketer. I personally think he was a better cricketer than rugby player. He thought the opposite. He played with Martin Crowe and Mark Greatbatch in the first 11 at Auckland Grammar School, was captain in 1980. Technically superb, you know.
I was a notable sportsman, I believe. I've got all the achievements to show for it, at least. I was first 11, first 15 at Auckland Grammar, and I was probably headed for a sports career, but I decided by the time university began that wasn't of interest. It wasn't because I decided that academic work was of interest. I decided that having a good time was of primary interest. And then halfway through my university career, at the year 3 stage, I suppose, I matured a bit and decided to settle down and focus on work. First of all, it led me to clinical psych. I realised 2 or 3 years into doing that I wasn't cut out to do that forever. It was just too emotionally taxing. So I reverted to academia and did a PhD.
In academia, how good you are is measured by something called an H-index, and Dad had a high H-index. An H-index is measured by two things. Firstly, the number of publications put out, and secondly, the number of times those publications have been cited. If someone has an H-index of 10, it means they've published at least 10 papers, and each of those papers have been cited at least 10 times. Dad's PhD supervisor, Professor Gavin Andrews, highlights Dad's academic prowess and his exceptional H-index.
Richie's position in the world of academia, it is high. His H-index is 139 this morning, which is really very high. It ranks well. 139 H-index, if you're 90, is not bad. It's still very good. But he was only 60. And that is just phenomenal. What's most surprising is his M-index, where you control for the number of years he's been publishing. His M-index is 4. At 2, you can get a job, it said, anywhere in the world as an academic. With a 1 of 4, he could get a job at Harvard.
And then good luck and confluence of influences and events led me to the Dunedin study, or came back to the Dunedin study, and that's really been the luckiest break I've had. The study began in the early 1970s, and I was particularly interested in understanding whether babies born in adverse circumstances, who in the past would have died, quite frankly, but were now living because of the increased sophistication of birth technologies in the 60s, whether they were faring as well as their counterparts who weren't born in adverse circumstances. 2 assessments were planned. We had perinatal data on this general population sample, so it was unselected. At age 3, we did a follow-up, and at age 5, the school starting age, we assessed them again. Phil Silver and his group of researchers discovered a lot of hitherto unrecognised problems at that time, and it created a sort of a child health shock. And I remember the banners we've got tucked away from the Evening Post and the like, and that was parlayed, I think, at the time into a further 6 years of funding. They wanted to understand whether these children who weren't starting from a start line, they were way behind, were faring as well as their counterparts through the school years. By age 13, the study had established its reputation in New Zealand. It's a very good study of human development, or child development as it was. Through the adolescent years, the focus of assessments broadened from just school or just behaviour or just emotional development to include a whole lot of other disciplines and areas of focus, talking oral health, respiratory health, cardiovascular health, psychosocial well-being, which is a very broad area, employment outcomes or educational outcomes, moving through to employment in the later adolescent years, whether you were parenting, what your intimate relationships were, whether you're antisocial, the list goes on and on and on. At our most recent assessment, at age 45, we were able to conduct an assessment of 18 biomarkers, and with that data we were able to characterise our study members, who are chronologically all the same age. They were born in one single year, general population sample, and characterise them in terms of their biological ageing. So we hypothesised that you start ageing very much from the get-go, and the rate at which you experience interrelated across multiple organ systems deterioration, that's your biological age. We hypothesised there'd be individual differences in that, so we came up with an algorithm that said this is your pace of ageing. Some people were on time, so they chronologically had lived 45 years and biologically they looked 45. But then the extremes on both sides of 45 were quite stark. I mean, some people were the equivalent of 28 or 29, and at the other end, some people were in their early 70s biologically. That's important because those people who are aging rapidly or faster than you would expect are the people who are most at risk of developing a whole bunch of non-communicable diseases, such as heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and so forth.
Dad wanted to complement the work done on human development in the Dunedin study by adding to that a number of intervention studies. These studies are informed by the findings that have originated from half a century of research. The aim is for these studies to be harnessed by government and NGOs to better the lives of all New Zealanders.
So we've got 50 years of gold standard longitudinal research, mapping people's trajectories through life, sorting out the reasons and the causes for ending up on the wrong side of the odds in all sorts of ways. Up until now, we've not taken it seriously in terms of focusing on what interventions can work. So we are doing one study of Māori early childhood education. It's immersion te reo, completely speaking Māori in the centre. And we identified in pilot studies 4 new constructs. There's never been work like this before, and we're hypothesising that this will give Māori students a better start at life. Simple as that. It's about equity, it's about fairness, about just bloody doing the right thing.
Richie and I met and identified 4 strengths-based Māori constructs that if we put those together, that would amount to the self-control that Richie was talking about. The first construct is tuakiri. Tuakiri is a secure local Māori identity. That is language, culture, confidence in oneself, in one's culture, and who they are. The next construct is whānauranga. Whānauranga is about the construct of whānau, which is the roles and responsibilities in being part of a whānau. And I'm talking about children and their parents. If they have that in place, that's so rich and so strong, so solid for a child to have that, to know who they are, what their role is, what they need to do and be. The third one is manawaroa. Manawaroa would be the most similar to the Western construct of self-control. So manawaroa is about persevering, about determination, and also a positive outlook. It's about problem solving, understanding that there are ways of resolving issues, of problem solving, and persevering despite difficulty and adversity, which from a Māori perspective, adversity, historically, the loss has been great. So a child that displays manawaroa is a wonderful thing. And the last one is piripono. Piripono is integrity, commitment, and responsibility. We believe that if those 4 constructs are in place, tamariki who graduate from Te Kōpai Piripono have their kete full of richness that then what we describe is as ha koa, which is confidence, that quiet strength, sometimes loud strength, that carries them and is the foundation for tamariki throughout their lives. The outcomes of the feasibility study found significant change across all of the constructs, Māori constructs and self-control. The tamariki grew in all of those constructs over time, which is unbelievably exciting to know that it's making a difference.
The second project, Kia Te Matapai, it's 400 controls, business as usual, 400 getting a condition called the Engage program or intervention, which is about strengthening self-control, 400 that will get language acquisitions, and then finally we're going to be doing work with a group that receives both self-control and language acquisition intervention.
So Engage takes this very simple, very accessible approach to developing these skills in the preschool years. We get this amazing developmental window where our brains are really malleable, where positive practice at these skills is really transformational. Some of the great activities are things like yoga, and there's a game called Animal Speeds. And if a teacher yells out turtle, you've got to go about in a turtleish way. You've got to be slow, you've got to be deliberate. And then if a teacher yells out cheetah, we're going bang, we're going to run around quickly. And the game or the activity is just, it's a fun, simple activity where you're switching between fast, medium and slow. And you're learning that skill of being able to regulate your emotions, but also how to behave and move safely around others. And so it's targeting some emotional regulation skills, it's targeting some behavioural regulation skills. You're also having to listen and remember what the instruction was, so there's some attention and memory skills in there too. We want to show really clearly what's changed since before they did Engage and what's after. So what we know we need to see is we need to see improvements in those emotional regulation skills. Can you manage those strong feelings? Can you be more comfortable with what's happening emotionally? Can we see improvement in those cognitive skills? So your attention, your memory, the air traffic control center in your brain. Are we seeing some improvements there? And then behaviorally, are we seeing those social improvements, the ability to resist temptations and delay gratification and all of those skills? As we measure that very clearly, we use rating scales, we use a whole lot of different assessment techniques to be able to really pinpoint what was the change and what was it that helped cause that change. So which games, which techniques, which new skills that parents or teachers have now acquired because of this program.
One of the Engage activities that we did is the Think or Say It game. If I gave them a prompt, and if that was something they thought they should think, they went to one side of the room, and something they thought they should say, they went to the other side of the room. And so we've worked on that a wee bit in our classroom, and I have actually heard the children use it during their play. Somebody will say something to their friends and they're like, that's something you should think, which is really cool. So it's amazing how quickly they soak up all that learning and use it themselves.
Realistically, we only get one shot at this. We only get one shot in our life course of having this really big transformational change. So, we take that really seriously, and what's exciting now is, our government is taking that seriously by funding this type of work, and all of that again traces back to the fact that you've got people like Richie and the Dunedin study that are getting serious about evidence and getting it into the world.
He's on the lane. That's why I can lay.
So the oral language program is called Enrich, and in helping children's oral language, it's helping them to communicate their needs and wants and desires to other people. And that's going to help them to manage their behavior, which is a very important aspect of self-regulation. The children's teachers, we're teaching them techniques to engage in more of what we call serve and return interactions with the children. The child might be looking at an object or pointing at a ball, and the teacher responds by saying, "Ball, you're looking at a purple ball. Do you want the ball?" And these everyday interactions with children are incredibly helpful for their communication and their development.
The difference that I've seen in one of the children that I care for is the language that's taken off. I've noticed in the last couple of months is that he's just saying lots and lots of words. He's just doing so much more, and he's joining in things, whereas before he would be hesitant and he'd just want to watch and look. He wants to come and join in, and he's talking a lot more. And I think the Enrich and Engage has definitely helped and provided a lot of extension for him in that respect.
Reading fiction specifically is helping all of us, not just children and adolescents, but as adults. It helps us to feel more empathy for other people, and even to engage in more pro-social behavior. So we're hoping to instill a love of reading fiction from a very early age in these children.
And finally, I'm on the board of a major NGO called the WISE Group, and I persuaded the board to invest in the digital mental health initiative. It was rolled out during COVID for free to the population. Mental health is a major issue in this country. as you know.
The WISE Group is one of the largest NGOs in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and we provide services in the community around mental health, addiction and wellbeing. So one of the things people might not know about Richie and the WISE Group is just how broad his influence has been on the group. He's been, a key leader and player in online CBT therapy with Just a Thought.
Just a Thought started because Richie Poulton had a vision. He knew that CBT was really effective, but that it was difficult to reach people. And he knew that online CBT was just as effective as face-to-face therapy. And so with that vision, then created Just a Thought.
The Dunedin study has identified the amount of challenges that all human beings experience at some stage or another over our lifespan, and the need for us to really get ahead of that to try and support people and families and communities to live a better quality of life and have access to better levels of well-being. CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy, is a psychological approach that teaches us how to understand the importance of our thoughts and how we perceive things and the impact that has on how we feel, the emotional responses and the physiological responses that we have, and what in turn we do in situations. And of course that then allows us to explore whether or not our thoughts are accurate and helpful and our behaviours are helpful, or whether or not there are other ways that we can look at things and respond that may get us closer to where we want to be in life. The courses are designed in a beautiful way, and it's through engagement in a story. So the content is taught initially through almost like a lived experience story of people that have had the challenges, and it follows their journey through exploring what's happening with them and uncovering the knowledge and the skills with a therapist of what they need to know to improve where they're at. After the stories are lessons, and they help our users to dig in and to really uncover their own changes that they need to make and how it resonates with their own life and challenges. We've been lucky enough with obviously Richie being one of the key people that really helped to bring Just a Thought into being. To work with them later down the line in the team at the Dunedin study to explore our first efficacy study, looking at our first 20,000 users through Just a Thought. What we were able to find is that it's incredibly effective. We found that as people work through the different lessons in each course, and there's approximately 6 lessons, they get better, and that is a significant building effect or improvement that we see over time. We know that just like face-to-face CBT, people don't need necessarily to engage in a full package of care or a 6-session course to get the benefits, and they use what they need until they reach a point where things are better.
So 3 insights or appetizers to the future. I hope we continue down this vein, but before that, I hope we continue the superb work that's got us to where we are at 50 years. We're all committed to it, the next phase. And there I leave you by saying thank you for coming, everyone, every single person here. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou, ko Moana Theodore tōku ingoa. My name's Moana Theodore, and I'm the new director of the Dunedin Multidisciplinary Health and Development Study, known as the Dunedin Study. Working with Richie has been one of the highlights of my academic career, my work life. I met him when I was 23 years old, so I knew him for a period of about 25 years. And so we had a long-term relationship that changed and developed over time, but he was an incredible academic, an incredible scientist, as we know, world-leading in terms of his research and his work. He was also a humanist. He was deeply compassionate and caring about people, caring about the people he worked with. His staff and his colleagues, and also incredibly caring and compassionate when it came to working with the Dunedin study members. So that was something he brought naturally with him, but into that role around having that compassion and care as a scientist, as a researcher, when working with each and every single study member, each and every individual, and really valuing the contributions and the gifts that they would give to support the work of the study.
The first thing I want to show you is some work we've done on something we call self-control and its long-term impact.
A key way to remember Richie and his work is to ensure that the research that we do and the work that we do here at the Dunedin Study is used to make a positive difference to the lives of others out there in society, to address those really meaty, complex issues around poverty, which Richie was so passionate about.
I will warn you now that if Mum doesn't know where you are, I will breach you.
I get asked, how will I continue Richie's legacy? But also importantly, how can I build upon and extend that legacy as Richie would have wanted? When him and I talked about me taking the role as director of the Dunedin Study, he talked first and foremost about values, and those values around putting the needs of the study members first and putting the study first and foremost as well. The study is always changing as we change and get older, and so for the last couple of phases at age 38 and age 45 and now age 52, it's becoming a study more and more focused on ageing. So how do people age and what helps to support positive ageing and what gets in the way of positive ageing, and that's the areas that we are more and more focusing on. And that's really important in terms of thinking about, for the next generation, what can help provide support so that others can, live those long and healthy and fulfilling lives into their old age, and how can we ensure that that's done equitably, and how can we ensure that we intervene or we look at prevention as early as possible to make sure that everyone has a chance to age positively and live those long, fulfilling lives.
I truly look forward to seeing where the study goes. It's clearly a national treasure. However, for it to remain so, it needs consistent international and domestic funding. Thank you to the study members who have and continue to give so much of themselves to this taonga. And thank you to my dear Dad. What an amazing legacy you have. You made people feel good, and you'll continue to do so as we hold on to the words that you left us.
Being slightly philosophical, and I tend not to be too philosophical as a person. I tend to just try and live for now rather than to philosophize, but I think my philosophy of life is to leave the world a better place if you can, have fun along the way, don't hurt anyone, is my philosophy of life. And I'm pretty satisfied with how it's turned out.